Hi everyone. Today I want to share a story with you. Hope you enjoy it. I got a call from my family crying about Dad's heart attack. I rushed home, only to find they were trying to get me to sign away my money. I pretended to sign, then shocked them with a truth that left them speechless. You should have seen their faces. So I was 3 time zones away finishing a meeting when my phone kept ringing. First it was my mom, then my sister, then my uncle. When I finally answered, my mom was crying so hard I couldn't understand her. My sister took over, telling me Dad had a heart attack and I needed to come home immediately. I panicked. I booked the first flight home, hands shaking. My dad, and I didn't always get along, but he was still my dad. I had to be there if something happened to him. I dropped everything, work, a big project, everything, and flew back to my childhood home, which didn't feel like home anymore. When I landed, there was no ambulance or hospital updates. Instead, my cousin Mark picked me up, acting strangely calm for someone whose family just had an emergency. When I asked about Dad, he said he was fine, just a scare. But something about him made me feel uneasy. I thought I was just tired and overthinking it. I was wrong. When I walked in, I expected to see Dad in bad shape. Instead, my whole family was sitting around the table, including a lawyer, with a big stack of papers. Dad looked okay, even joking that it took me too long to get there. They started talking fast about inheritance, the family business, and how I was the only one with money that wasn't tied up in debt. They said the business was in trouble, and after Dad's scare, they needed to sort things out. They wanted me to sign some papers for tax reasons. The lawyer slid the papers to me like it was normal, but it wasn't. They wanted me to sign away everything I'd worked for, my condo, my investments, everything, so the family business could stay afloat. If I signed, I'd lose control of everything. My assets would be under their management, and if they failed, I'd have nothing. This wasn't about Dad's health. It was about draining the only person in the family who had made something of himself without sinking with the rest. Growing up, I was the outsider, the one who didn't want to work in the family business, the one who left home early, and the one who chose tech over tradition. My success always seemed to annoy them, like they were jealous but also looked down on me for it. I didn't marry young like my sister. I didn't fit into the family mold. I built my own life, and now it was stable and thriving. And now, the same people who had mocked me for years were suddenly acting like we were best friends, like everything was fine, and I wasn't being tricked into signing away my money. I noticed how my mom had stopped crying, how Dad avoided looking at me, and how my sister kept talking over me, offering coffee, laughing too loudly, anything to hide the tension. It hit me then, this wasn't desperation, it was a plan. They knew I'd come. They had practiced this like a play, each of them with a role. My uncle was the peacekeeper. My mom was the emotional one. My sister was the friendly one. Even the lawyer played his part, nodding and reassuring me that it was all normal. But they didn't know that I had dealt with people far tougher than any of them, investors and CEOs who would do anything for a profit. This wasn't family, it was a business deal masked as love. I smiled, took the pen, and pretended to sign. The room relaxed. My sister even clapped and said, "That wasn't so hard, was it?" I sat back, looked around the room, then pushed the papers back to the lawyer. I said, "These signatures are fake. You should double-check before you send them in." The silence was deafening. My mom's face fell. My sister turned bright red. Dad finally looked at me, and the anger in his eyes told me everything. He wasn't ashamed, he was furious I didn't fall for it. I stood up, walked toward the door, then turned around and said the words I had been holding in. I flew across the country because I thought my dad was dying. You used my love for this family to try and steal from me. Don't call me again unless it's a real emergency. And next time, get better actors. This was pathetic. As I walked out the door, my uncle called out, "Wait, we can explain." But I didn't look back. I slammed the door behind me. Instead of going back to my hotel, I went straight to the bank. If they were this desperate, there had to be more going on. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to find out what they were really up to. The next morning, I was running on adrenaline and barely any sleep. I couldn't forget the look in my dad's eyes when I revealed I faked the signature. It wasn't the look of someone caught off guard. It was the look of someone who had been planning this for a long time. The fake heart attack, the urgency, the papers, everything was planned to make me sign away my money. I couldn't help but wonder, how many times had they rehearsed this? How long had they been planning it? I needed answers. So I skipped breakfast and all the calls from my family. I went straight to the one person I knew who would have the truth. My cousin Mark wasn't a mastermind. He just went along with whatever the family planned. He wasn't mean, just weak. I found him outside a cafe, waiting for his breakfast sandwich like it was a normal day. When he saw me, he went pale. He didn't run or lie, not because he was brave, but because he didn't understand how deep in trouble he was. I didn't ask questions. I just stared at him for a minute while he nervously fiddled with his coffee, pretending everything was fine. Finally, he broke and told me everything. The family business had been losing money for years. My dad had made some terrible investments, some legal, some not. A bad warehouse deal. A fake company in Nevada. A partner stealing money without anyone noticing. They'd mortgaged almost everything. The house, the vacation home, the land Dad got from his grandfather. It was all borrowed against. And then there was a lawsuit I didn't even know about. A former employee had accused them of tax fraud, and the company was under investigation. If they lost, it could bankrupt the family and lead to criminal charges. That's why they wanted my money. Not for the business, but to keep themselves out of jail. They needed it to survive. I left that cafe feeling sick. I stood there, staring at nothing, for 5 minutes. Everything I had known, my family, the business, the house I thought I'd one day take over, was fake. It was all built on lies, and they thought I would sacrifice everything for them. But they had crossed the line. When they used my love for them as a way to steal from me, that was the moment I knew what I had to do. I had to destroy it all. I went to a lawyer I trusted. I told her everything. The fake health scare, the documents, the fraud. She listened, then told me something that changed everything. If they tried to use those papers or forge my signature, it would be fraud. If they used them in any financial deals, it would lead to criminal charges. She asked for copies of the papers, and I gave them to her. She said she'd take care of it and told me to stay quiet and watch. So I did. 2 weeks later, I got a call from her. She said they tried to use the papers. They submitted them to a private lender, claiming I backed them. The lender got suspicious, checked the signatures, and found the fakes. They froze the transaction and reported it. My family's desperation had finally caught up with them, and now there was proof. I didn't celebrate or gloat, but I did show up at their house one last time, not to yell, just to say what I needed to say. When they opened the door, it was like they'd seen a ghost. I told them I knew everything about the fraud, the debt, the lies. The investigation had already started. I told them I wouldn't press charges, but I was cutting all ties, updating my will, and freezing any assets linked to them. I told them that if they contacted me again, I'd make everything public. My mom cried. My sister begged. Dad didn't speak. He just stared at me, angry. Maybe I had killed something sacred to them, but it wasn't love. It was their last illusion of control. That day, I stopped being their golden goose. I became the consequence they never thought would come. I walked away and never looked back. Since then, life's been quieter. Not easy, though. Letting go of family, no matter how toxic, feels like cutting off a limb you've always depended on. It hurts, especially on holidays. But you know what doesn't hurt? My bank account. My peace of mind. My mornings without fear. I still hear things sometimes, gossip from neighbors or cousins. The business is gone. The lawsuit is still going. My sister moved in with a friend. My parents sold the house. None of it surprises me. They built their world on lies and thought I'd keep it standing forever. But I'm done holding things that weren't mine to carry. In the end, family isn't about blood. It's about respect, boundaries, and love without strings attached. Once you understand that, you stop chasing ghosts and houses that were never homes.